Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some fascinating news coming from Matt Rhule at Big Ten Media Days as true freshman Carter Nelson sounds like he's going to have an early role for Nebraska in 2024. I think the kicker to this conversation is it's not necessarily at the position a lot of us expected. He's going to start his career as a wide receiver for Nebraska. And I think my favorite part of this story is Matt Rhule's reasoning for starting Carter Nelson as a wide receiver. And that is Carter Nelson's a difference maker. And as coaches for Nebraska, we have to figure out ways to get our difference makers on the football field with the football in their hands. And if that means Carter Nelson's playing wide receiver year one at Nebraska, that's what it's going to look like. And you just got to love Matt Rhule's ability to simplify the sport of college football. And that is, hey, if Carter Nelson is one of our difference makers, we got to get him on the football field. In a world where so many media analysts and head coaches like to overcomplicate this sport, Matt Rhule simplifies it and kind of just gets down to the basics and says, our best football players need to be on the field. Carter Nelson is one of those guys. We're going to get him on the field year one. I want to get into the conversation of Carter Nelson and what it's going to look like for him year one for Nebraska, talk about how he impacts this Nebraska offense, and then talk about what it might look like 3 to 4 years down the road as well. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Nebraska fans. Many of y'all know this is a program that I love talking about, and the amount of support you guys throw in the comment section, that stuff means the world. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with asking you guys how y'all think, because there are a lot of different Nebraska fans that feel different types of way about this story. I've seen a lot of Nebraska fans on the message board since this news came out saying, hey, we're loaded at the wide receiver position. This one kind of makes me scratch my head, and I completely see that reasoning. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. But let's start with Carter Nelson and why it makes sense for him to start as a wide receiver. And you look at the tight end position, it is awfully hard for true freshmen to come in and play year one as a tight end, specifically Carter Nelson. You go back 12 months ago when we were talking about Carter Nelson committing to Nebraska, we said he's probably a year 2, year 3 guy. This is a kid with exceptional physical traits. We absolutely love the frame, but he's got to fill out that body before he can play an inline tight end position for Nebraska. We kind of know that if you're going to play tight end for Nebraska in this offense, you have to get it done in the run blocking department. And it was going to take a year for Carter Nelson to fill out that frame and become a physically imposing inline tight end that can get it done in the run blocking department. And so I think Matt Rhule's reasoning to start him at wide receiver is, hey, we want this kid on the football field. He's a guy that can impact this Nebraska offense. We'll give him a year to get that body right, to play tight end. We're going to get him on the field as a wide receiver right now. And it makes a ton of sense. When you look at Carter Nelson, this is a kid that was a state champ in the high jump as a sophomore in high school. He runs an 11-second 100-meter dash. He has impressive discus and shot put numbers. He plays basketball. You look at Carter Nelson and say, these type of kids, they don't grow on trees. And we got to figure out a way to get him on the football field. And you look at him as a pass catcher at the wide receiver position. I think the first thing you say is he's kind of a matchup nightmare. I mean, name me defensive backs and just players on defense in general that are going to be able to deal with what Carter Nelson brings to the table. And this is a kid that is 6'4". He is 215 pounds. He's faster than most defensive backs that are going to be trying to work against him. This is a guy that you can ask to play vertically down the field with the 11-second 100-meter dash speed, with a basketball background, exceptional ball skills when that football is in the air. He's a guy that you can use to attack the deeper third. He's also a guy that if you want to get him the football to in space, he is going to be a load for defensive backs to bring down. So as a pure pass catcher, as a wide receiver, there are a lot of opportunities to get Carter Nelson involved in this Nebraska offense early. And I just love Matt Rhule kind of simplifying Carter Nelson and say, hey, you're an elite athlete. You're a guy that can help us win football games in 2024. It might not look like a tight end in 2024 as a true freshman. We're going to get you on the field as a wide receiver and go let you impact this football game. Now, over the next 2 to 3 years, I would expect Carter Nelson to move inside as a tight end. I think probably in 2025, he's going to be your starting tight end because he's going to put on some weight. He's going to become a guy that can get it done in the run blocking department. So over the next 3 to 4 years, Carter Nelson will transition, or at least I expect him to transition to that tight end position. But as a true freshman, let's go let him perfect his craft as a pass catcher. And then when we put the weight on him and he can get it done in the run blocking department, he's going to be a matchup nightmare at the tight end position for multiple years to come for Nebraska. I love Matt Rhule's ability to simplify the sport of college football. We talk about it on the recruiting trail as well. What is Matt Rhule's motto on the recruiting trail? We talk about it all the time. Give us the big, fast athletes. I mean, football is a size and speed game. We want the athletes that are big. We want the athletes that are fast. And even if they're not the greatest football players yet, we'll coach them up to be good football players, but give us the stuff that you can teach. It's a brilliantly simple way of looking at the sport of football, and it's worked for Matt Rhule at Temple. It's worked for Matt Rhule at Baylor. And I have full confidence that it's going to work for Matt Rhule at Nebraska as well. Now, there's one other piece of news that I want to talk about with Nebraska, and that is Bly Hill, who's expected to start practicing midway through fall camp, which I think is a massive storyline for Nebraska, where you look at that cornerback spot with Bly Hill going down with the injury and Ethan Nation not with the program right now. We had some question marks about the depth at the cornerback position. I mean, we feel good about Tommy Hill. We feel good about Malcolm Hartzog. You're bringing Sayre right through the transfer portal. I think that was a brilliant pickup for Nebraska. Outside of those three, I mean, there were some young cats that might have had to play early for Nebraska. The news with Bly Hill, and it sounds like he might be back for that Colorado game week 2. I think that's massive in terms of the depth of that cornerback position. I always find so many different takeaways when I get to listen to Matt Rhule talk. He's a guy that's not going to get up and say a whole lot of nothing like a lot of other head coaches, a lot of coach speak. Matt Rhule's going to tell you how he thinks. He's going to be transparent. He's going to allow you to have a good understanding of what's going on with this Nebraska program. My biggest takeaway, Carter Nelson. I think Bly Hill coming back a little bit sooner than a lot of us expected is certainly massive news as well. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comments section. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.